Hi, I'm Steve from the Rooted Podcast, and I hope you can join me every weekday for a 5-minute or less devotional word study or insight into Scripture to add to your day. Welcome to Fruit Snacks. Hey everyone. In this episode of Fruit Snacks, I wanted to look at a parable together, specifically the parable of the weeds found in Matthew chapter 13. I'll go ahead and read it before we dive in and talk about a few things. Starting in verse 24 of Matthew 13, it says that he, Jesus, put another parable before them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds?' He said to them, 'An enemy has done this.' So the servants said to him, 'Then do you want us to go and gather them?' But he said, 'No, lest in gathering the weeds you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time, I will tell the reapers, gather the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" Now this parable is in the midst of several parables that Jesus is teaching his disciples. But what's interesting to me about this is, first of all, the concept that Jesus is not particularly interested in identifying or clearing out the fakers, the pretenders, the nominal Christians, if we were going to use a modern term. In other words, at the end of all things, at the end of time, Jesus is going to separate those who truly are committed to him and truly have trusted in him and believe in him from those who have just paid lip service or who have called themselves a Christian without actually believing any Christian doctrines or teachings, and it's all going to get sorted out in the end. And one of the things that tells me is a lot of the time that we spend or could spend discussing amongst ourselves about whether a person is really saved or not, or looking at a person after some great fall and saying, I guess they were never really a Christian to begin with. Seems to me that based on this parable, a lot of that is, well, really just wasted time, because Jesus commands his servants to allow the weeds and the grain to grow together until it's time for the harvest. And at the end of everything is when the harvest is going to occur. And so Jesus is essentially telling his disciples, don't worry about it. Don't worry about identifying who's who. Don't worry about sorting out who's really committed and who isn't. That's my job. It's not your job. And what's interesting, we were actually watching The Chosen, which is an excellent series if you haven't seen it. One of the lines that they wrote in there that's in the similar vein to what Jesus is saying when he tells Simon, I will make you fishers of men, is this whole idea that when a fisherman catches a fish, they catch a big, bundle of fish in this net. They're not trying to only catch a certain kind of fish. They're going to catch any and all fish that are going to jump into their net. And after they're caught, after they're in the boat and on shore, that's when they sort out the good fish from the bad fish. And in the show, Jesus looks at Simon and says, I want you to catch all kinds of people. I'll sort them out later. And with that in my mind from these past few weeks of having seen it, when I read the parable of the weeds, I was just reminded of that same point here. Jesus is essentially saying, let them all grow up together. Let them all be in church together. It's fine. I'll sort them out later. It's not your job. You don't have to worry about it. Be who you know you're supposed to be. Be who I've called you to be. Be obedient to that and to me, and I'll sort it out. You don't have to worry about it. And I don't know about you, but for me, that certainly takes a lot of pressure off me as a Christian, but it should also challenge me to not waste my time thinking about who's really a Christian or not, because that's not my job. Only God knows the heart. and my job is to serve him as best as I can each and every day.